Happy 4th of July, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. It's Saturday, so you know what time it is. It's time, of course, for Studio Chatter. I'm Craig Reeves, and today's guest is a very special talent you all had better keep your eyes on, and that is Jay Hurlock. Jay Hurlock is a young and immensely talented producer and musician who specializes in R&B music, jazz music, and neo-soul. 18 years old and already has gotten the praise of producers like Bad Snacks, Dresage, Anomaly, Kenny Beats. I'm telling you all, this is a future household name I'm going to be talking to. And here's the thing, Jay Hurlock has a new album they're releasing on July 18th, so you guys stay tuned for that. We cover so many topics in this interview, from paying your dues in the industry to the ins and outs of entering the business. Y'all are going to love this, so without further ado, here is my interview with Jay Hurlock. Hello, Jay Hurlock. How's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I have wanted to interview you for a while, and a lot of my listeners, I'm sure, are going to be really happy to hear from you. Now, you have a new album that you're going to be releasing this month. Talk about it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I haven't been producing for too long, so it's kind of like weird how often my sound has changed like in the last year, but I just kind of had this idea. I wanted like a really dreamy, sparkly album, and so I was just kind of collecting tunes like maybe 4 months ago, like that I made over the last year, and I made a couple new ones and then just put it all together.
Yeah.
The overarching concept is kind of like sleep or dreams, like that kind of vibe.
Definitely. Why did you feel like right now, like so early in your career, that you wanted to put together an album? Because a lot of times people don't normally put out an album, not an EP. No, you went a whole album. You went straight up, let's just put out an album so early in your career.
I mean, well, I think there's two reasons. One, I might as well like put as much music out as I can. And the second one is I don't like the idea of doing singles because, I mean, just for me personally, I like the idea of having like a full like vision of a project and then like putting it together. It's really satisfying creatively for me. And well, originally it started as an EP, but then I just had too many songs I wanted to include, so it just became a short little album.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started producing, I wanted to be a rapper. Like that was what I wanted to do. And in fact, I started producing because I wanted to make beats for myself as a rapper. And I found out very quickly that I wasn't very good, but the idea of an album scared the crap out of me. Now, of course, this is when I was in high school. And you have just graduated from high school. How exciting must that be?
Honestly, it was kind of underwhelming because it was like, I mean, the whole year was like online almost the whole year. Mm-hmm. And so it was like a weird year to be a senior in high school, but I was just like relieved to be done with it, honestly.
Yeah, you didn't get that senior experience. That's kind of what was missing, I think. Because my senior year of high school, it was a long time ago, but we had this huge scandal that took place at my high school, and there were people who died, and there were all kinds of things that happened, and it completely ruined my senior year. So I kind of have kinship with you on that. And my senior prom was a disaster. The high school sweetheart that I had broke up with me on prom night because she thought I was cheating on her. Yeah, she thought I was cheating on her. Like, that's what it was. I wasn't, but she thought I was cheating on her. And so, yeah, I know how that is. So you don't miss high school at all, don't you?
I mean, like, I'm going to miss, I don't know, like obviously my close friends, but I'm more excited than I am like sad about it. You know
Yeah, looking ahead. Did you get so you started doing music at an early age, I would imagine. I mean, this is definite.
So I've a pretty like fairly musical family. Like my dad was in a band before I was born, and like my uncle is like in a band and everything. So they started giving me, but like no one in my family really knows a lot of like music theory or like formal training. So they started me on piano lessons when I was like really young, like kind of like classical style lessons, like many kids go through. And then so I just like kept doing it. And when I like started high school or like in 8th grade, like that kind of age, I started teaching myself music theory and like jazz harmony and all that stuff. And then it kind of just like kept going. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, I need to learn how to produce because I feel like it and I have free time.
Did you get support from your friends in high school when you started producing? Because I remember like when I was in high school, I was quick to, show my friends the beats that I was working on. Like, did you get support from friends or was it more just an online thing?
Yeah. My friends are very supportive of it. Which is really nice of them actually. I did a lot of work with working on online music events through the high school, like producing like the choir or whatever. So that was also like kind of a way that I was doing production, like not like making beats, but like, I don't know, it's another thing to do.
And you're from New Jersey, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now you're going off to college. Where you plan on going to school?
So I'm going to the state school, which is Rutgers University, and they have like a really good music program there.
Oh yeah, they do.
There's it's like a massive school. So there's like this whole, there's like a whole music school there. So. Oh
yeah, I mean, New Jersey Rutgers is a really prestigious school for music. Go Scarlet Knights.
I like barely knew that was our mascot, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm somewhat of a sports fan, so I've seen the Scarlet Knights a few times. So what are you planning on majoring in?
So there's not like a huge production program there, which is honestly fine because like most people that are doing production like are self-taught, like a vast majority. And I feel like I've learned more on my own than I would in like the music like production program. So I'm majoring in jazz studies and then doing like a music tech minor.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds like it would be good for you. And plus, you're absolutely right in the fact that you don't have to have a degree in music. Nothing against people who have degrees in music production, but I mean, that was really a recent development. I mean, music production wasn't taught in colleges when Thriller was being made, or when, Purple Rain was being produced. Prince didn't go to college to become a music producer, this kind of leads me to something that I do want to ask you about, because you are very young and you are in a generation now that has access to so much knowledge that my generation didn't have much access to. When I was young, we didn't have YouTube videos. We didn't have, Discord. I mean, we had chat rooms and stuff, but we didn't really have communities like what we see today with music production. And the fact that you are young and you're kind of looking ahead at where you want to go in the music industry, you have a lot more knowledge about the realities of the business than I did, than I'm sure a lot of other people did. Because I'm pretty sure that that this business can be cutthroat. I'm pretty sure that you already know that there are a lot of things that can happen in the business, and you're not as naive going in as we were. Does it scare?
Sure.
Does it scare you a little bit?
yeah, it's kind of intimidating, but like I am like pretty grateful that like I don't know, like human history is so like vast, and then I get to like exist in this specific like time frame. It's pretty crazy, honestly, when you think about it. But yeah, it is pretty intimidating, like going into the music industry. But I think having like a realistic idea of what it's going to be like is like really helpful. Because I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people think that they're going to just be like they're going to be the biggest artist in the world, like, and but that's not true for basically anyone. So,
So
yeah, I mean, like, I kind of just have to, because like I'm just so passionate about this is like just what I need to do. So I was just like, I
yeah,
basically just
you
I can't see
definitely
myself doing
don't
anything else.
want to. You definitely don't want to have a fallback plan. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having, another job to support your craft, but I mean, if you have a fallback plan, you'll fall back on it. I mean, you really will. So how did you get started in music? Like, take me all the way back. How did you go from a little kid playing with trucks to becoming Jay Hurlock? I don't know if you played with trucks or not. But...
I remember I was really into trains.
Oh, I was into trains too. I had a train set when I was a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I had like the elaborate tracks or whatever. Yeah, so really like basically most of my life it was just like taking piano lessons and like not being good. Like I was never like terrible at piano. Like I was just like a kid learning how to play. But yeah, it's basically just been taking like classical style piano lessons and then learning everything else on my own. Like yeah, like I was saying, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I started learning like jazz piano, I just like watched YouTube videos and learned music theory because like I didn't have anything else to do. So
that's so amazing, dude.
I spent all my time doing it.
Yeah, we were just literally talking about how, people today can learn whatever the hell they want. It's like, oh, I want to learn jazz piano. Let me go on YouTube and look. Yeah, then...
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I can't even begin to tell you how many people have DM'd me saying, Craig, how do you do this? Craig, how do you do that? Now, I would... and look, I'm not bothered by it at all, right? I'm flattered that people would ask me for help on anything. But it's kind of like I could understand how people would ask that question, 15 years ago. Okay, like when I was young, that was really the only way you could learn. And that was involving, getting coffee for somebody before they would even teach you, I mean, that's what it involved. But nowadays, it's kind of like the intern as far as production goes is dead. I mean, there are no more people who are having to learn from other producers by cooking for them or cleaning for them or getting coffee for them. I can't tell you how many errands I've run for people when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And do you think, though, that this might have caused young people to not have an appreciation for those who came before them, or those, the idea of paying your dues? Have you heard of that concept?
Yeah, I have. I was actually like, I'm not expecting to like, I mean, I think like maybe running errands or getting coffee for people is like, I mean, it's realistic that I'm gonna have to do that at some point, which I mean, I'm just fine with it because it means that I'm eventually just gonna be, it's just like progressing my career ahead. Like, I mean, I know it's not like a necessary thing for everyone to do, but I'm expecting that it's going to happen to me.
Yeah. But what I'm talking about now is a lot of young people are bypassing that. They are putting out a record and they learned how to produce by watching videos on YouTube or, getting some sort of lesson that they could download from, some website or something. They're learning how to produce and they are putting out records that go viral on TikTok or whatever, and they're not having to go through what we went through. And I'm not saying like that they don't have a respect for the business or whatever, but one of the concerns that I have for the younger generation is the fact that a lot of young people, they, in some instances, and I'm not saying you at all, I think you're kind of the opposite, but there are just young people that I run into who just kind of have a sense of entitlement. You know, they kind of think I
know what you mean.
They think it's just going to kind of come to them, or, you know, there was a meme that a friend of mine who went to Icon Collective put up, and the meme said every Icon student or something like Icon students coming in think they're going to become famous. They think they're going to become a pop star. And then, you know, they all drop out when they find out that that's not the case. So that's just
totally. Yeah. People they're like, oh, if I just make a song that's I think is amazing or whatever, or like, I think it's the catchiest song ever, like it's just going to go viral, but like, or they feel entitled that it should go viral because they put in work, but that's just not how anything works, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we actually met through a producer by the name of Bad Snacks, and she's a really talented producer. And I'm wondering how you came across her music and what kind of influence has Bad Snacks had on you as far as your career or as far as musically?
Yeah, so I think I first found her stuff on YouTube. Just like her YouTube channel. Then I maybe beginning of 2020 or whatever, listened to, or as soon as whenever Neat Tape 2 came out, I was listening to that a lot. And then I eventually found her Twitch, which led me to the Discord community. And honestly, sonically, her music has definitely influenced me a lot. As far as like sound design or vibe goes, like a lot for sure. And also, I think one of the most important parts of that community is like the feedback streams, because like I feel like I've improved. I wouldn't have improved as much if I wasn't like consistently submitting to those streams and like getting things to work on, and then like coming back the next week and seeing what else I can improve. Like that was huge for me as a producer.
Yeah. And I have a Twitch stream myself, and, you would submit things to my channel, and I just thoroughly enjoyed listening to your music and offering whatever feedback I could on it. You know, sometimes it was hard because it was already so put together well and everything. So you have done such an amazing job putting out instrumental music. Have you contemplated working with artists or songwriters?
Yeah.
Or
I am right now, actually. Bradley, who did the like server versus server, he did a lot of vocals for that EP from the server versus server competition. So we're working on an EP together right now. So I'm like producing it, and he's like writing songs and stuff. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a great project.
Oh, I bet it's a culture shock, isn't it?
I don't know about culture shock, but hopefully people like it.
It is different because I started off in the realm of producing with artists. Like, I didn't go into production with the idea of doing instrumental music. I spent my whole life doing music for artists. And then when I tried to sit down and do an instrumental song, it's like, I don't have a top liner to rely on anymore. I'm having to do everything myself. And I would imagine where if you come from a background of doing instrumental music, you almost have to make room for a vocalist. It's like, well, I'm not going to be the only person that has any sort of creative control over this anymore. So with you and Bradley, are you helping with the songwriting, or are you just making the tracks for now?
Yeah, so the process is kind of like I'm sending him just like a bunch of like short like beat ideas like that are like kind of just like loops that with like some basic chords and drums and stuff, and then he's like writing a top line and then sending it over, and then I'm kind of like producing it out further to like match the top line, because I think like writing to a top line is, or like producing around the top line is so much easier than making a fully produced track and then needing to like fit a top line into it somehow. Like, which is why I love doing remixes so much, because it's like the structure's already done for you, like the top line's already done for you. You just have to like, I mean, you were talking about remixes in the last episode, and I was like, yeah, I really feel that.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
When he sends back like a vocal stem, it like almost feels like doing a remix to me. Because like when we did the server versus server track, it started as like some chords with like some drums, but then when he sent the vocal back, I kind of like redid the whole production to like fit the vocal. And I feel like these initial like short ideas, like the goal is like to get a vocal stem that I can fully produce out.
What genre do you feel like you would be best at as far as working with an artist? Like I definitely hear R&B for sure.
Yeah, I think the like R&B, like neo soul type stuff is like, I'm really into it.
I could hear you. I could definitely hear you doing her. Like I could hear you working with her. Have you heard her new album?
I have not got a chance to listen to it yet.
Oh man, it's really good. It's really long. That's the thing. It's really long. Yeah, it feels long. It's a great album. It just feels a little long. It's like these.
It was officially called like a debut album, which is really funny to me because like she's been making music for a long time, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't really feel like a debut.
Yeah, because the last time I used to know her is just like a compilation or something like that. Although it really is an album. I mean, let's be real about it. You know, she's very prolific. So who are some dream artists? Like if you could just name off some, like if you could just pick any artist that you could make some hit records with, who would it be? I'm very curious.
Ooh, okay. Probably number one is Amber Navran from Moonchild.
Oh, okay.
Fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, making a track with her would be crazy. Let me think. Anyone that's like that Robert Glasper has worked with, big fan. Hiatus Coyote. Another one of my like favorite singers of all time, Jordan Rakei. I don't know if you're familiar with his stuff, but he's like, and Leanne La Havas too.
Oh, okay. I could hear all that. Definitely, I could hear that. I could definitely hear. I could definitely hear Hiatus Coyote. I could definitely hear that. You are a big fan of Moonchild, and what's funny is that I had never even heard of Moonchild until I met you. So you've introduced me to some new music that I'd never heard of, because I'd never heard of Tennyson or Moonchild until I met you, and you kind of turned me on to those two acts. So
I'm glad to hear it. I found out about Tennyson because it was from one of Bad Snack's like feedback things. She like mentioned, this kind of sounds like Tennyson. I was like, let me look up this artist, and I was a big fan.
Oh, wow. So yeah, one of the things that I think like when people hear your music, I think people might say, I hear this influence or I hear that influence, and probably it's an artist you've never even listened to. You know what I mean? Because I get that all the time. You know, Craig, this sounds like this person. And I'm like, I'm not familiar with this person's music who you're talking about, but okay. So what is the story behind your move from Logic to Ableton? Because you used Logic at first, right? But then you moved to Ableton.
Yeah, we're gonna start up the DAW wars again. But yeah, I mean, I just got Logic because it was like, I don't know, it's pretty cheap, relatively speaking. It's like a really affordable DAW, and it was just like, I had like a small amount of experience with GarageBand, so I was like, oh, it's probably a pretty easy to grapple with, like after using GarageBand a little bit. And it was, I don't know, it was just kind of like the default DAW that I see people using on like a MacBook or whatever. So I just went with it, and it's a great DAW. I like it a lot. But when I got like a trial of Ableton back in like December, I was like, oh wait, this is so much better for me personally.
You know, you're not the first person to say that. A lot of people.
I haven't tried Cakewalk yet, though.
Well,
so I might change my mind.
I mean, Cakewalk is only on Windows, and with Logic, I think a lot of the appeal of Logic is that, you know, people, you know, when Apple bought eMagic, because eMagic was the company that made Logic before Apple ended up buying the rights to it. And that was the smartest thing that Apple ever did, because they came out with GarageBand, which is basically kind of like a very, very, very stripped down version of Logic. And it comes for free on every MacBook Pro, you know? And so people end up being able to use GarageBand, and it's kind of like a pipeline to Logic. It's really the smartest thing that Apple has done as far as music. And
yeah, it's like on their phones and iPads too and everything. So like people can just like mess around on their phone, and then we're like, oh, it's time to actually learn how to produce, and like, oh, Logic is similar, might as well just go with it.
Yeah. Now the producing on the phone thing, honestly, whenever I see people produce on their phones, it makes me feel old as dirt. I mean, there's a lot of things that make me feel old, but come on, producing on the phone, that's crazy.
I mean, like, I didn't have a laptop until like, I don't know, middle school or high school or whatever. So I made a couple beats on the iPad, but nothing good.
Well, I mean, the iPad is one thing, but the phone, people are making beats.
It's crazy.
Because, like, you got to remember, I think a lot of people lack an appreciation for where we came from with music, because it's kind of like back in the 80s, you had to have a whole room full of equipment to make like a simple beat. People would literally go and pay for studio time so that they'd go to, you know, they'd have access to all of these instruments. I mean, like, even when I was coming up, you couldn't make beats on a phone. Like, my very first computer was a compact Presario. It was 300 megahertz. That was the processor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think about like the progression of technology, like with music. I think about it a lot because it's like honestly just really mind blowing. Like even like it's crazy like how much 15 years has made a difference. Like I don't know, like if I've seen like some YouTube videos like using whatever DAW from like the first version of the DAW, and it's like, yeah, it's just kind of mind blowing that we went from like wax discs in like the 1930s or whatever to laptops that can produce a full album in like 80 years. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, you went from wax discs. That's a little bit before my time. I'm not that old. I came into it, you know, maybe when like virtual instruments were in their infancy. So virtual instruments were around because I started producing in 2000. Virtual instruments were around, but they weren't around the way they are today. I mean, you know, they didn't sound as good as hardware. I mean, people would still have to have hardware instruments. And back then, what was popular and what's really fallen out of favor now are PCM synths, you know, kind of like your Tritons and your JV 1080s and things like that. Those have fallen out of favor. Now what's come back, well, really, it really hasn't ever gone out, are your vintage synths, you know, your Junos, your your Prophets and, think your Moogs and stuff like that. Like that, your analog synthesizers, those haven't died out. I don't own a single piece of outboard synth. Like pretty much every sound. Yeah, like every one of my sounds come from the computer,
Mm-hmm. And I record like live instruments like fairly. I did it a lot more recently, like flute or guitar mostly. But I don't have I'm planning on getting a synth soon. But like, yeah, there's so much you can do in the box. It's like you have no reason to get an analog synth except for like the knobs, I guess.
Well, one thing I've kind of noticed, and it's something that I see a lot of, it's a huge difference I see between the older generation, people like me and people who are still doing this, heaven help us. But we don't have a tendency to use a lot of hardware. And I think a lot of that is because we're over it. A lot of young people, they buy like a Juno and they'll buy a Jupiter 8 and, they'll buy the Korg, what's it called? Polysynth or whatever, they'll buy a Prophet and they'll go and buy all this stuff. And I think some of that is just because there's this tendency, like they want to feel like a real producer, they want to buy gear. Yeah. You know what I mean?
There's like a whole aesthetic of like the producer with like a wall of synths or whatever, like, or with like the analog mixing board. Like it's like a whole aesthetic of the studio. And then I feel like a lot of people really want that.
Yeah. It's kind of
not necessary at all.
Yeah. Cause like when I was coming up, when I was young, okay, when I was like 17, 18, 19, that's what we had to have. We had to have, a freaking MIDI interface, and you had your keyboards, you had, your Phantoms, your Tritons, your I can't even remember, your motifs and all of that. And then on top of that, the Juno or the Jupiter and all of that kind of stuff. And then the MPC, and, you're having to navigate all this, and you got to have a mixer to, feed it back into the audio interface. And when you had to do that, and that was the way you had to do it, it's kind of like, now that we don't have to do it, we're kind of free. Because I look at somebody like Ian Kirkpatrick, who's my age. He's produced like Dua Lipa and stuff, and he doesn't use any, outboard stuff like he used to. And, Timbaland doesn't. Okay, so a lot of these newer, like these old school producers who are still out here doing it, we don't use that stuff. Like Teddy Riley doesn't, and so it's kind of like, I think the older folks are kind of like over it. I think that's what it is. And I think the younger,
it's such an inconvenience.
Yeah, because we remember how much of an inconvenience it was. It's like, why are y'all doing stuff that we tried to get away from? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when we went from tape to digital. Okay, when we went from tape to digital, people were like, oh my God, we've got all this dynamic range. We have no more noise. We've got no more of this stuff. And now what are people doing? Tape sims.
Yeah. It's so funny. They're like, I do this. Like I will just like add like a hiss into my tracks, and like, just because like, I don't know, it sounds like it was made on tape, but then like people are like, oh, I hate well, before like digital, they're like, oh, we need to get rid of all the noise, but now we're like adding it back in. Just, yeah, it's hilarious.
All this stuff that we were trying to get rid of for so many years, you idiots. We worked our tails off trying to get rid of all this stuff, and y'all are just gonna bring it back. Oh, you know what? That noise, it sounds cool, and let's bring back that vinyl. And it's like, oh dear. And look, I'm doing it too. Like I'm literally doing the same thing. Like there was so much, Miri and I did a record, Save You, and we added so much noise and analog stuff, and because we just wanted that analog feel. It's like we're just never gonna be happy.
Yeah. Well, people want to be able to control the noise. Like if the noise is put there for them, they're like, I want to get rid of it.
Yeah. Dude, I remember a producer who we're both real big fans of, a producer out of Canada named The Count. And he has he puts out sample packs on a regular basis. And
I have most of them.
Oh, I'm sure, because I only have 2 of them, but I need to get more of them. I remember he was on, I believe it was Twitter. I can't remember if it was either Twitter or Instagram, but I remember one of the comments, he put out a sample pack, and somebody just complained and said, all these samples, they sound too clean, and, they just sound too perfect and too pristine, because they were kind of looking for that analog hip hop sound. And so then The Count decided, I guess, to put out a new sample pack. And he said, this is like the latest technology and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm listening to this sample pack. It is the most analog sounding like noise. And I'm like, this is the latest technology. I found that to be just the craziest thing. I mean, and now we've got lo-fi.
Yeah, lo-fi is like such a weird name for a genre, because it's like it doesn't tell you anything about the genre, just like bad quality. But like
a lot of people don't like that term, including The Count. The Count doesn't like the term lo-fi. A lot of producers who have been labeled as lo-fi, they object to the term, so it seems to be falling out of favor. I guess they think it's some form of like gentrification or something. I don't know. It's the strangest thing.
Just like any like slow or chill like pretty song with like hip hop drums. It's just like a lo-fi song. Which I mean, like I would say like half of my new album is lo-fi, quote unquote. But like I don't know. I wouldn't use the term lo-fi because it's like. It's not. But the problem, fidelity, like
well, the problem that I have with people who object to the term lo-fi, they'll say, "No, it's boom."
I'm not like objected to the term. I just think it's weird.
Well, they'll say things,
but like it's caught on enough.
Well, they'll say things like, "No, it's not lo-fi. It's boom bap." And I'm like, okay, it's not boom bap. Okay, it's not boom bap. It's like some of these people, I don't know. It's clear that they didn't live through boom bap. It's like boom bap is East Coast hip hop from the 90s. That boom bap is a specific form of hip hop. Okay,
yeah,
so
like boom bap was lo-fi because they were sampling off of like actual vinyls. Like it's not like lo-fi of today at all.
No, it's not. Like if you listen to Nas or something like that if you listen to like Illmatic, all right, some of the stuff on there is boom bap, right? So something like New York State of Mind from the Illmatic album, that's boom bap. Okay, Pete Rock would be boom bap, but Bad Snacks is not boom bap. Okay, like people who say, people who say, oh, that's boom bap, don't call it lo-fi. And I'm like, lo-fi could be lo-fi R&B. Lo-fi could be lo-fi disco. Lo-fi could be lo-fi hip hop. I mean, it's like when people say, and they will shame people who use the term lo-fi. And I'm like, no, you're the one that seems to be a little bit ignorant as to what genre to call it. Because people tend to think that any sort of old school sound in hip hop is boom bap when it's not. Like The Chronic is old school hip hop, but it ain't boom bap. Okay? G-Funk is not boom bap. All right? NWA in the the Straight Outta Compton album is not boom bap. All right. I mean, I don't know. I could get on my soapbox about this, but it's like, come on, man, just let people make music.
Like, I think that's also like kind of an interesting segue into, because I feel like in the last like 10 to 20 years, like the barriers of like genres have like completely broken down. And so then it just becomes like a big mess, like trying to label songs that don't like fit cleanly into like a genre. Mm-hmm. Like every style of music is like fused together, sort of.
Yeah. I mean, it's like so eclectic now. Like people are bending genres, and it's like, what is the point of even having? I mean, I've really, really thought a lot about, is there even a point to genres anymore? I mean,
yeah, I don't think so.
Because I mean, like these days, you've got music. People are being pressured to make music that appeals to a playlist. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's all about getting on that Spotify playlist. And so what people are having to do is they're having to make music that appeals to a particular genre that's defined by Spotify. Or, let me make a hyper pop song. Like, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, like I completely like did not do that with like my first EP, like appealing to like a genre for a playlist. And then when it came time to like pitch the songs to playlists, it was like really difficult because they're like, oh, this is too weird and jazzy for our like hip hop playlist, but then this is like too lo-fi for whatever, it's too high energy for the lo-fi playlist, but then like where am I supposed to put this? Like, but like didn't like, dude, I did that for like my next album too. Like I didn't, that's just not something I was thinking about when I was making it. But then it's like when it comes time to pitch it, it's gonna be really difficult again.
Yeah, but let's be real, okay? I mean, you go to New Music Friday, okay? Half the music on New Music Friday is utter trash. Let's be real. Okay, I mean, it is so obvious to me that a lot of the reason why music ends up getting on the big playlist is because of it being released by a major label. It's like they don't have to adhere to a genre. Like they're not being told, oh, it's too indie for my playlist. And, they're not being told that. I was...
yeah. Like the only reason I would want to be on a playlist is just so more people can hear my stuff. But like, it's not worth trying to appeal to the playlist. And labels have most of the influence on popularity, I feel like, anyway.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, though, honestly, it's like, how are you going to get heard? It's like Spotify kind of runs the industry. Spotify kind of rules the world, in a sense, because it's like, on one hand, you don't want to adhere to them because you want to have freedom, you want to have creative freedom, but then on the other hand, it's kind of like, well, we are releasing commercial music, we want to make money, we want to have an audience, right? Because there's no point in releasing music if it doesn't go heard. And so there's kind of that pressure, and I don't see that and I actually talked about this in the last podcast. A lot of established artists, they don't have that pressure put on them. They can put whatever they want out and people are just going to market it. They're going to be able to do whatever they want. And a lot of the reason why people like Beyonce or whoever are seen as geniuses, it's not necessarily that they're the only ones that have that genius, but they have the support to be able to put out whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly. Like once you have a big enough following, you can just do whatever you want and people are gonna like it. Like I don't know, like Tyler the Creator has like a massive like following, and so he always has like a new sound, but like they're like, but if he was like an artist that no one knew about and he was trying to pitch to playlists, like I don't know, he probably wouldn't get into many playlists. Yeah,
he'd be told, oh, this is too weird, I can't get down with this. And I mean, it's always been the case that artists were kind of slaves to the tastemakers. The tastemakers have just changed. Now, back then it was the radio promoters, right? I mean, it was the radio stations, it was the radio DJs, it was the program directors. Those were the people that you had to sell to in order to get heard. But at least we knew who they were. At least we knew who the program directors were. At least they had a face. At least the program directors and the radio DJs and the club DJs, at least we knew who they were. So there was some level of accountability. The problem that I have with the Spotify curators is that we don't even know who they are. We don't know who we don't know who is deciding who ends up on what playlist. We have no idea. All right. Like, it's just a bunch of faceless people behind a company, Spotify, who are essentially deciding what the rest of the world listens to. And if there, who knows if there's politics going on behind this? Of course there's politics. Give me a break. All right. And that's not to discredit, my friends who have wound up on these playlists. But it's kind of like we don't see who these people are. There's no accountability. And so if they're playing politics with people and saying, okay, I'll put your music on the top of this playlist because we're friends or whatever, nobody's going to know, because Spotify doesn't tell us what their criteria is for how they decide what ends up on a playlist. That was not the case with radio. All right. It just wasn't, because the program directors, you knew who they were. You could find out who they were. There was accountability.
Yeah, the playlists are they're sometimes really loose, structurally, there's not they're not as coherent. I don't know if that makes any sense, but there's obviously the playlists that are genres, but then there's some playlists that are just also a lot of non-editorial playlists are just random people that make playlists, and the playlist makers are far too influential and who gets heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So who are some of your influences that you are listening to right now? Who's in your playlist right now?
Well, a lot of Hiatus Coyote, they're probably one of my favorite artists. When I first heard their 2015 album, it changed the way I think about harmony a lot. It was really inspiring to me, and their new album is pretty amazing. I've been listening to Maxwell recently.
Maxwell, I like Maxwell. I'm a big fan of Maxwell.
His music is so fun to listen to.
I think you'd be a big fan of K Tronada. I am a big fan of K Tronada.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I do love. I've been listening. I was actually listening to K Tronada earlier today. Let's see. Oh yeah, the Kiefer. A lot of Kiefer.
Yeah, Kiefer's great. Anomaly, I would imagine. I hear a lot of his playing style and yours, and it's not just because of jazz. I hear more Anomaly than Kiefer in your playing style. Yeah. Yeah,
I think they're both really influential on me for piano, but I think I've transcribed more Kiefer stuff, and his sound is a little bit more easy to digest, because Anomaly's so crazy with his chords and everything. It's just it's so insane. It's how do I incorporate this into my playing? But Kiefer's not that Kiefer isn't also insane, but you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
It's a little bit more low key, I think.
Yeah,
because Anomaly, he's got, that's kind of part of his appeal, because he does live shows. He plays live, and so that's he wants.
My goal is to be to do that style of live show, but with my own music, but with all the automated patch changes and everything, that kind of show.
That would be awesome.
I'm working on one right now, just to have a live set ready to go.
Have you thought about starting a band?
I have. Yeah, when I'm in college, I plan to start a neo soul type band, Moonchild or Hiatus Coyote or whatever.
I could definitely see you doing that for sure.
And, the jazz program specifically is it's pretty small, so hopefully I can just recruit everyone.
revolutionized that. Jay Hurlock, this has been amazing. Thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is such an honor.
All right. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Studio Chatter. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, you all be safe and have a great holiday weekend and stay blessed.